Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Week 6 Power Hour podcast. We've got a very special show for you. I'd like to welcome back from a very long hiatus, the great Rumford Johnny, who I had to track down like the newest Star Wars movie, traveling to remote, distant villages, finally dragged him out of a cave. He was with a bear and had a full beard, and he's back, ready to podcast with us. Rumford Johnny, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. The reason I was gone that long, guys, is I was on a flight with Donald Trump, and he tried to give me a hand job, and I'm feeling really uncomfortable and awkward. So now I'm coming forward to tell my story. So
we appreciate your bravery.
Thank you.
At least with those tiny hands, it probably made your junk look bigger.
It did. It made it look huge, man.
Johnny Proctor, how are you doing?
Good, man. I'm pulling a U this week, man. I'm on a wobbly table in a small room with my microphone just like on a dresser next to me. Like I have nothing put together. I feel so out of whack.
Welcome to my world. But where's the champagne flute this week?
Oh, I couldn't fit it in my carry-on bag for my trip to Baltimore.
All right, and what are you drinking, Johnny?
Dogfish Head Pumpkin Ale. It's Denny Carter's favorite beer.
Yeah. I called this the pumpkin spice latte, but bro equivalent. Rumford, what do you think?
No, I think you're wrong. I think you guys are just getting too hard on pumpkin and on hashtag big pumpkin spice. Because there's a lot of crap pumpkin stuff out there that people just throw like cinnamon and like star anise in and stuff like that. But that's garbage. But there's good quality pumpkin libations out there, and I think Proctor is actually drinking one of them right now, which is Dogfish Head. So I kind of like it. So I'm not going to bag on Johnny. And I'm also, by the way, drinking straight up a man's drink, tequila and lemonade in a mason jar like a fucking weirdo hipster. But it's delicious, and I need a lot of this tequila to really kind of deal with you guys for the next hour and a half or so. So.
All right. Well, I'm
the
fading.
Elite Lemonade Dynasty League apprecites it.
Oh,
nice. Elite Lemonade. There you go. That is Elite Lemonade, by the way. Very much so.
All right. Well, I'm fading pumpkin spice, and I'm playing butternut squash in a GPP.
Nice.
Johnny, you want to talk?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either. You want to talk GPPs?
I do.
I mean, not too
first, real quick.
Sponsorship.
Yeah, I want to. The podcast today is sponsored by FanShare Sports. Again, we continue to hook up with these guys. They're doing good stuff. They are looking at players as they're tagged on social media, a lot with Twitter. Fantasy recommendation sites, seeing who is writing articles about who's talking about who. And they aim to cut down your research time by curating hundreds of pieces of DFS content on a weekly basis. With FanShare Pro, which is still currently free. It's free to sign up, so go check it out. You can use player tag counts and their sentiment ratings to gauge potential ownership levels. So for an example for this week is Jamal Charles is very high on their list of tagged running backs, but his sentiment rating is pretty low. So basically, half of the community is talking about wanting to play him, and half of the community is talking about not wanting to use him. So he's one of those players who's getting a lot of conversation, but he may not end up being as highly owned as you might expect. So they look at two things: whether people are saying you should start players, you should sit them, and how often players are being talked about. So you should go check them out. You can find them at fansharesports.com, and you can find them on Twitter at FanShareSports. Sign up for free. Check them out. It's good stuff. And I'm going to make sure to tweet out some of their ownership numbers from last week so you can see sort of how they did with what they were tagging and where players were owned.
Nice. Great job, Johnny. Do you want to talk? What do you want to do? You want to talk quarterbacks? You want to talk games? What are we doing?
Yeah, man. You want to talk quarterbacks?
Yeah. Yeah, let's do it.
I'm so glad you guys are prepared for this shit.
We were just hoping you would carry us. Like,
oh, really? This is come on, dude. I'm just a guest now. I'm not carrying the moving the heavy lumber anymore. Come on, dude. You're not Ray Summerlin, man. I can't carry you like I can do with Ray. Come on.
You're like Martellus Bennett, where you just like pick up the scrap touchdowns as Gronk goes for the 100-yard games.
That's it, man. I'm the Luke Cage of this podcast.
I'm the Nicolas Cage of this podcast.
Oh man.
Are you really? Nice. Nice.
All right, give me a quarterback.
All right, so
stop flirting with Rummy.
So a quarterback that was like crazy popular last week and ended up being a great play was Brian Hoyer. He's still priced down this week. He's, I think, 5,800. Goes against the Jags. You guys in on Hoyer again this week?
I am. I don't know about you, Joe. What do you think, Scotty?
Yeah, so this one's like super interesting to me. Johnny, you were going to write him up, and then you decided not to when you looked at how opposing quarterbacks were giving up the fourth fewest yards per pass attempt to Jacksonville, and that like really caught me off guard and wanted to make me move off of Hoyer, who's been really dominant the past 4 weeks. Or since he started, he's leading the league in yards over that stretch. 3 games now, I think it is. He's one of PFF's top 5 graded quarterbacks over that stretch. But the yards per attempt thing is a concern to me. But I look deeper into it, and Jacksonville is actually giving up the most fantasy yards per drop back. So really, they're not giving up a lot of yards, but they are giving up a lot of touchdowns, including rushing touchdowns. I'm not really sure what that means exactly, how sustainable that is. And they have faced some tough quarterbacks like Andrew Luck and Aaron Rodgers so far. I'm not really sure what to do. I think he is a good value, and the matchup I don't think scares me. But Johnny, I want to hear your thoughts on that, on those stats I just threw out.
So one of the reasons that Hoyer's been so valuable over the last few weeks is because he's hit, especially in DraftKings, he's hit 300 yards all 3 times, and that 3-point bonus is huge on DraftKings because it's essentially a touchdown. And I think one thing that's weird about Jacksonville is that they're just so bad that quarterbacks aren't really having to throw against them a whole lot. So you saw, I think Aaron Rodgers threw for like 199 yards. Andrew Luck threw for like 220. And they haven't – I don't think they've allowed a quarterback to throw for over 250, but every quarterback has had an efficient game against them so far. So I think I kind of like Jordan Howard more because they're so bad, but it's hard to disagree with using Hoyer because he's playing so well right now. And I don't think the Jags are good by any means. And the real question is how bad the Bears defense is. And if they're as bad as they were last week, then even the Jags will probably be able to move the ball. So it may mean that Hoyer has a few more pass attempts than some of the previous quarterbacks. Yeah. I mean, I'm okay with him. I'm not as in love with him as I was last week.
No, I like that logic. Actually, I actually like this game kind of low key because I think people are really looking at when we're looking at the quarterback battles on these slates. Everybody's thinking about Alex Smith and Carr. We're thinking about other quarterbacks, but I kind of like the Hoyer, stack, and playing some contrarian stacks, and I actually like Bortles a lot. I mean, coming off a bye, I think his ownership is going to be pretty low. And I'm pretty big on A-Rob this week as somebody that I definitely want to have in my lineups. So I think for GPPs, I can definitely see stacking Bortles with Hearns and A-Rob, and at least some of my GPP lineups, because I really do think that both of these teams are garbage on defense. They'll be able to move the ball at will. So, but I agree with you on Howard. I think that he's a pretty safe cash play actually too as well this week. He's one of those guys. No matter what the script is, he's still going to get minimum 15 touches. So I like him a lot as well.
Yeah, I like Howard a lot too. I think we'll talk about him maybe a little bit more once we get to running backs. I do like Hoyer. I mean, another plus for Hoyer is that he is a home favorite this week. Johnny, I know you were kind of on Dalton, and we had some debates about it. And the big thing for me was, like, he's been okay recently, and he's priced so low. But, like, Dalton's a completely different quarterback with and without Tyler Eifert. Like, since Eifert came into the league, Dalton's averaging 23 fantasy points per game as opposed to only 18.5 when Eifert doesn't play. I think that's a big concern to me. He's also incredibly more efficient. Like, when when Dalton targeted Eifert, he had like a near perfect passer rating. Pulling it up right now, he had a 144.1 QB rating last year when targeting Tyler Eifert, and it was 94.2 the rest of the time. That's a big concern to me, and instead I think I'd rather pay up for Alex Smith at $200 more. Johnny, what do you think there?
So I think with Dalton, I think the thing about him is that he's been solid as a passer in the sense that he's completing the highest percentage of passes in his career. He has the second highest adjusted yards per attempt, even without the touchdowns. And so he's been good. He just hasn't been scoring. And I think this is a week where we're looking at a Patriots defense that allowed a touchdown to both Cody Kessler and Charlie Whitehurst. They're a Patriots defense that we thought was sort of good coming into the year, and they've looked like they are not quite as good as we originally thought. But I'm gonna ask Rummy what he thinks about his Patriots against Dalton.
I mean, I think you have a pretty legitimate point there. I think they're kind of mostly a bend don't break kind of defense in the second half of most games. Really, they've always kind of had that identity. They don't generally shut people down. Depends on the matchup. But I think in this type of a matchup, I think they're really going to focus on trying to shut down AJ Green with safety help. And I don't know where he's going to go, where Andy Dalton's going to throw to. I think that's kind of makes his targets a little sketchy. I don't think they're afraid of LaFell at all. I think that my play in this matchup, if you definitely do want to play Dalton, I think the play for me is Gio this week. I think he's probably the safest play. Easily 6 to 7 targets in the passing game. I don't really see anybody else that really kind of scares them on offense. So, I mean, it just kind of sucks without Eifert in the lineup. They're really not that hard to shut down, especially if they kind of really just focus. I mean, I think they're really comfortable just letting Gio get those little chunk plays, and letting somebody like Azuma, catch 5 or 6, and he's probably a decent GPP play. But other than that, I mean, who else are they going to really attack that defense with? I mean, I don't think LaFell scares them. I think they know how to keep him out of play, really, and just kind of rough him up on the sideline. So for me, it's if you still want to play AJ Green, because I think people will be off him because the Patriots do try to focus on the number one deep threat. I think he'll still end up could have one really big play in the game. But, I mean, I just don't, because he'll be low owned, I think, as a result. But I think besides that, what's Dalton really going to do? I mean, he's going to pick up some yards with his feet, but he doesn't really have the weapons to really kind of beat up on this defense, at least not at home. I mean, after that last matchup they had, they're going to be really tightened up on defense, I think.
Yeah, I agree with Rummy. I think you take out AJ Green, and I think it's a tough matchup for Dalton. He's not really on my board. Looking at some of the more higher priced quarterbacks, if you're paying up, it's got to be for Breeze, right?
It's got to be for Cam.
Why is that?
Because everybody's paying up for Breeze.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can play both of them, but I think if I'm looking at the quarterback in a super high scoring game with a 53 over under, I'm gonna pick the one who runs the ball. before I'm picking the one who just throws the ball.
I'm not sure how confident I am in Cam's rushing ability coming back from the concussion. And instead, I think the actually may lean heavy on Jonathan Stewart. I know he's coming back from an injury, but I really like that matchup for running backs. I think Drew Brees is going to light this secondary on fire. It's all scrubs, guys who I think only one guy isn't an undrafted rookie or has more than 80 career snaps as a cornerback. Really, he should just dominate them. I love Brandon Cooks this week. I like Fleener a lot. I like Michael Thomas a lot. And then I like Kelvin Benjamin and Olsen on the other side. But I think Breeze is the play, especially because he's $200 cheaper. Rummy, you said you liked Cam as the lesser owned option. Do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Oh, I think that Breeze is going to be higher owned. I think that Cam, people are going to be worried a little bit about the concussion. I think that at home for New Orleans, I think a lot of people will be playing Breeze. He's going to be the chalkiest play of the week, I think, at quarterback. But I think that Cam is going to be a little bit under-owned. I think there's probably a little bit of a misconception about him being this pocket quarterback this week because they don't want him taking off running. I think that's kind of stupid because, to be honest, he's got more of a chance of getting hit when he stays in the pocket. I mean, because they don't call defenses when Cam gets hit in the head. I mean, it's been proven already that he takes a lot of shots that don't get flagged. So if you're Cam Newton, what would you rather do? Stand there in the pocket and take a shot to the chin? Or would you just want to roll out and protect yourself that way? So I think he's still going to run some. So I'm not really concerned about him not getting yardage with his feet. So I'm feeling Cam because I think he'll be under-owned and comparatively to Breeze, and that his rushing yardage is probably still pretty safe.
Here's my thing. Why would they – they're not – if they limit – what are they going to limit his running? They're 1-4, man. They have to, win a fucking football game.
Yeah.
If they're down, then it's Cam's going to do his Cam thing. And they've said this week, no limitations, nothing. He's had 2 weeks to recover from the concussion. I think he started practicing in full as of Wednesday. He was limited as of Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, I don't see any reason why they're going to limit him. And if people think that, then I'm going to have I don't know who will be higher owned between him and Breeze. I think they'll probably both be a little lower because they're so expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Breeze will be higher. I'm in on both of them. I want lots of this game.
The shout out to UF Collective, who you guys talk about on this podcast before, who aggregates a lot of the potential ownership for GPPs and for daily fantasy as a whole. And Drew Brees is far and away the number one option in terms of ownership. So, and Cam is probably going to be fourth or fifth by the time we get to Sunday. So yeah, I do like Cam. Granted, he's still going to be high owned, but he's going to be the lesser owned option. So if you're making stacks, it's probably smart to start with Cam and have some of the, have somebody from like Cooks from that contrarian stack to sort of balance that out a little bit on the other side. So at least you have a slice of the passing game. So for New Orleans, I do think it's going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a fun game. I don't think this is going to be a game where either defense right now, who's both are playing terribly, are going to be allowing a lot on the ground. They're both going to be allowing a lot through the air. So it's going to be a fun game, man. So you definitely want to have both pieces of the pie, I think, in your stacks.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Cam actually really hasn't been too great this year. He has a 6-5 touchdown to interception ratio. We all know that Drew Brees is the man on the road at home, averages 30 points at home and 21 points away. But one thing about Cam Newton is he's actually pretty steady home and away. His splits were almost identical, I think, last time I checked. Johnny, who's your favorite cash play quarterback of the week?
As gross, as gross as this. Well, okay. So, and we'll talk about the Monday night quarterback after this. But For the main slate, I think my cash quarterback, and Scott, I think you touched on him, is probably Alex Smith, and like I feel really dirty about it.
Yeah, so I actually didn't know that you were going to say that. I agree. I just think he's so low priced. He's one of the safest quarterbacks around, and he's up against the Oakland Raiders, who everyone has just dominated.
And the one big thing with Smith this year is like their defense sucks, man. So they can't play the type of games they want to play. Like he's had 2 games with over 45 attempts, and like that's not the type of ball that the Chiefs want to play. And they're not going to be able to stop the Raiders from scoring against them. So in 2 games where Smith has thrown over 45 attempts, he has 287 and 363 yards and 2 touchdowns in both of those games. And in the first game against the Chargers, who put up a ton of points against them, he also rushed for a touchdown. So I think we might see like a similar type of line as he had in week 1.
Yeah, I also want to say that Alex Smith prior to the season has averaged about like 2 fantasy points per game more when Jamal Charles has played. He kind of does a lot of work as a receiver, and Alex Smith benefits from that. Rummy, what were you going to say?
No, I was going to say nothing, actually. Sorry. I don't know if I had anything else to add to that, really, to be honest with you.
All right. Yeah, and just to shout out Fanshare again, Alex Smith is the 3rd most tagged quarterback. He's tied with Carson Palmer, and pretty much everybody's recommending to start him. So
yeah,
I mean, he's going to be popular.
I think
if we're doing shout out, sorry, go ahead, Rummy.
I know. I just think there's something to be said too. Obviously, too, in this matchup, that your opponent's probably going to have Alex Smith as their head-to-head cash game quarterback. So it's probably maybe smart to play Derek Carr as your cash game play, because I do think both defenses are going to be pretty soft. I think this is going to be a pretty underrated game in terms of passing. I think both passing attacks are going to be just fine in this game. So I do like Carr, and I think he's pretty safe. He's put up some pretty good numbers. He hasn't really had many stinkers this year, and there's nothing prohibitive about this matchup for him. So, yeah. So again, I think a lot of people will have Alex Smith in cash, and I think if you play Carr, that kind of it helps you out a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I think Carr's a good call as well. He's PFF's top-rated quarterback for the season. He's playing at home. He's really been playing lights out, though his stats might not really reflect that. Also, I wanted to shout out Sal from 2 QBs, just because we talked about Alex Smith, and we always get to mention his name, especially on the week we're talking about playing him in cash. All right, go ahead, Johnny. You want to talk Monday night?
No, I just want to say for Carr, like their O-line might be as good as the Cowboys, so it's huge for him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so my top quarterback, if he was available on the main slate, but he's only available on slates that include Monday night, would be Carson Palmer against the Jets. Like the Jets are they're fucking bad, man. Like they can't stop quarterbacks. So fire up your Palmer.
Yeah, I agree with that. If you're playing the Monday night slate, I think Carson's the easy top play. I also like him in GPPs. I don't think he's going to be too highly owned. Like Carson really hasn't done too well this season. He ranks 25th in PFF QB rating out of 34 quarterbacks. But I really like this as a game to bounce back. The Jets are just atrocious, giving up the highest yards per attempt to opposing passers. And I really like John. And they're getting beat deep. They're giving up, I think, the most. They're tied with Oakland for the most 35-plus yard and 25-plus yard passing plays. So I really like John Brown's chances. But, I mean, it could also be Michael Floyd or J.J. Nelson, for all I know, of beating them deep. Rummy, what do you think about Carson?
Yeah, I like him. And I'm with Proctor. I mean, it sucks that he's not on the main slate, but definitely, in GPPs, I love having a slice of that Monday night game, especially with guys like that. And you mentioned John Brown. Love having him in the flex, man. He's 4,500 this week. Really nice, really nice play. You can definitely move some other players in that same framework You can drop in a running back if you want in that spot, if you want to differentiate from the crowd. But I think he's definitely going to be in a lot of people's lineups, probably a lot of cash lineups too as well this week. But I definitely love him as a GPP play. Just that 8:30, drop on Monday is beautiful because you can do a lot definitely at the last minute to kind of help you move up in a GPP.
Yeah, and he's honestly a reason why I'm probably going to have more exposure to the Sunday, Monday cash game slate than I normally would, because I think people are going to miss out on using Palmer, and I think he's a cash play.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess my contrarian quarterbacks that I'll be writing up are Matt Stafford and Aaron Rodgers, pretty much primarily just because they came in so lowly owned. I think my reasoning here is with Stafford, Tremaine Johnson's out, and there's another injury to that secondary. Stafford hasn't really been great. Like, a lot of his yardage has come after the catch from like the receivers doing a lot of the work. But I could definitely see that continuing this week. And then with Aaron and with Aaron Rodgers, my thinking there is just that Green Bay has the best run defense in the league. So it is possible that they stop Ezekiel Elliott. I know that seems like impossible after the past 2 weeks. But if they were to do that, I could see Aaron kind of get up early on them. What do you think about those two guys as really deep contrarian plays?
I like them, man. I think it's a good call. And I think what happens with ownership with these guys who've had sort of inconsistent production or have had some really down games, as Rodgers has had, that it's reflected in ownership. We see a lot of names that are more consistent at the top, and when somebody has a bad week, it really does drop these guys down to that single-digit ownership. So I do like him this week. I obviously love to stack him with Jordy as well. I think he's still a good play. So, yeah, man, I'm with you. I like that play.
Yeah, and this is a little crazy, but I don't think it's completely out of line to play Stafford in cash. I think he's in a really good spot. The Rams I think they're going to be missing 2 or 3 of their defensive linemen.
Yeah, they looked bad last week, man. They looked real bad.
Yeah, they're going to struggle. I think one other quarterback we almost skipped over is Tyrod Taylor this week.
No, we didn't. No, just kidding.
He's somebody who's he's going to be popular, and I think I'm okay with Tyrod Taylor if you're also playing LaShawn McCoy in cash. So I think if you want to just encapsulate the entire Bills offense against the 49ers, that's okay. But if I'm not using LaShawn, I don't think I want Tyrod in my cash game lineups, because it's very possible that McCoy ends up with 3 touchdowns and Tyrod does nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, next position.
All right. So you guys want to talk running backs?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
I think Le'Veon Bell is a must-play. I think LaShawn McCoy is a must-play.
Yeah, so let's talk. Let me just Le'Veon Bell real quick, in case anybody's thinking he's too expensive. He's really expensive on FanDuel, but I think you need to find a way to get him in.
FanDuel's
Miami
super
Dolphins
cheap everywhere else, by the way. Like, it's weird. Like,
yeah,
I fit a ton of really high price guys and still made a lineup I loved with like 1,000 left. It made no sense.
Right. So like, Le'Veon Bell is the play between him and Antonio Brown this week, and the Dolphins are probably like the worst team in football. They're allowing the most running back carries against. They're not defending well against anything, and like with Fantasy Labs, since looking at their models, Le'Veon Bell has the highest ceiling and floor projection I've ever seen for a running back since I've been using their models. So
yeah,
I don't see a reason that you can not use him this week. I mean, just considering Labs, his ceiling is 10 points higher than the second highest ceiling, which is LaShawn McCoy, who we'll talk next. But
yep,
I mean, holy shit! This is like such a Le'Veon Bell game.
He's a must-cash play, I think. Anyway, I mean, it's hard to not play him in cash, and because there are so many like really moderately priced running backs, and also moderately priced wide receivers, you really can justify playing and not really have any issues with assembling a lineup. So yeah, I mean, he's in every one of my cash lineups. I mean, I cannot not play him this week.
Here's an interesting thing about him. So only 20 players ran more routes than Le'Veon Bell has over the past 2 weeks. And then last week he got 20 carries on top of that. He's a wide receiver getting a bell cow running backs like running shares. It makes no sense. He's I guess you said Lab's top guy, definitely deserves to be. I love him. I want him in every single lineup. I don't know how he busts. Like I really can't figure it out unless like Antonio Brown goes up way too early and then they bring in D'Angelo Williams. That's the only way I could see that not working out.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. But I don't know. I think they'll do everything that they can to try to limit. Not that they will. Antonio Brown. And the thing about Antonio Brown is that the only argument you can make for Antonio Brown is that people are going to be scared off of that price tag, because when you see 10K, it's just like fucking ridiculous. People like just don't want to touch him. He'd probably be like really super low owned, and that's the only argument you can really make for him, is that the ownership will be so low, but he really cripples the rest of your lineup to try to squeeze him in there. You just can't do anything else, really.
Yeah, you know? I don't think. And here's the thing: is you're looking at you're hoping he gets 3 times his salary, and what 3 times his salary is like you have to get 100 yards and like 2 touchdowns. I mean, holy shit, it's not like that's a normal game for Brown. That's like a good game for Brown.
Yeah, that's a really good game for Brown. Yeah. So I mean, which the nice thing is that eventually this week his price will come back down again for next week, and beyond, because he's not going to meet expectation with that price. So at least his price will start to inch back down again, which will be nice. But yeah, I mean, I just think that you kind of have to play Bell. I think the other thing too is, with not to get off on a tangent about the Steelers, but Sammy Coates, man, if there was ever a week to like, just even though his price has only gone up a little bit, just to avoid him. I mean, with that fucking finger, I mean, I think the only reason he hurt his finger is because the ball actually hit him in the hands and it was a foreign object. He didn't know what it was, because he's used to hitting him in the chest. But I would move away from him this week, and I think Bell just so safe because he's going to be that outlet, underneath. Ben doesn't have Heath Miller anymore for the intermediate stuff, so Bell by default is really becomes that intermediate tight end, in the passing game. So I love him, man.
Yeah,
and then
locked and loaded.
Nice.
The chalk you cannot ignore. Let's put it that way.
Yep. And then LaShawn McCoy against the 49ers.
Yeah. So here's the thing with like McCoy. I think a lot of people are going to come down to whether or not they want to play. There's 3 guys who are. I mean, DeMarco Murray is more expensive than the other 2, but you got DeMarco Murray, LaShawn McCoy, and Jordan Howard are kind of like your. Mm-hmm. Who am I playing other than LaShawn McCoy, or who am I playing other than Le'Veon Bell? And I think the answer is LaShawn McCoy. Scott, where are you at on those 3 guys?
Those are my 3 guys. I love LaShawn McCoy. He's been a bell cow in every single week this season. He's the only running back to do so. Remember, that's like a stat I use. It's like if you played over 66% of the snaps, had over 66% of the carries, over 66% of the running back targets in any given week, and he's done that every single week, and he's leading the league in running back snap percentage. He's just completely matchup proof. If they get way ahead, if they get way behind, there's just not enough depth behind him to really use anyone else. they're just going to give him a monstrous load. And he's been fantastic. He's been one of the most efficient running backs, even though that's really all the Bills have going for them. He's been incredible. Up against a 49ers team they should blow out. He's going to see – that entire offense is going to see a ton of snaps. He should run all over them like every other running back has done so far. Really like him. Then Jordan Howard, I'm super excited about too. He's been a bell cow in both of his starts, and he's been fantastic. He's been the most efficient running back out there. He's getting all of the targets, all of the carries, all of the snaps, and he's in a great matchup as well. I like all three of these guys. Rummy?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think I mentioned this earlier too about Howard. I don't think he's game script dependent either. I think he's pretty much he has game script insurance, essentially, that he'll get 15 touches no matter what happens, really. So I like that. I like that about him. I think that's the stubbornness of the John Fox, basically Bears, is that he's always going to give his running back enough, no matter what happens in the game. So, yeah, I agree with you. I also like Carlos Hyde, man, at 5,100 on DraftKings. I think just so cheap. I think you can pair him with Le'Veon Bell as your two running backs, and you can do so much, man, at wide receiver and tight end and quarterback. I mean, you can get away with having some of the top options there, and really, guys that we like this week. A lot of the wide receivers that we like this week, and I'll have some opinions about tight end when we get to that position. But it allows you to be able to not have to really pay down for tight end either. To when you have somebody like Hyde as your second running back, it's only 5,100. That's pretty low, so it definitely qualifies having Bell in there and Hyde as your two running backs.
Yeah, so Hyde was like the next guy I wanted to talk about, and I think his price is just it continues to just be wrong.
It totally is
on DraftKings, and something I mentioned. I did a roster coach video talking running backs a little bit this week. He's hit value at a 5,100 price on 4 of 5 weeks this year.
It's crazy.
And he's also been over 20 DraftKings points on 3 of his 5 weeks. He's seeing the least amount of carries he's had this year is 14. In that game, he also had 3 targets. He had 6 targets last week in a game where they were throwing while they were behind.
Yep.
And it's clear that Chip Kelly just wants to ride this guy. And then this week he's now going to get Kaepernick, who, while Kaepernick's probably not as good of a passer as Blaine Gabbert, which sounds weird because Gabbert's terrible, he is more of a read option quarterback, so that should open running lanes for Hyde as well.
Yep.
So I like him, and I don't think people are going to be on him so much, and they should be.
No, he's pretty low owned, or at least modestly owned. And you're right. I mean, that was my thought too, is having Kaepernick there. Kaepernick's his second read is his feet every time. He's not gonna like scan the field. If his first read is not open, he's taken off on foot, and that's just gonna cause the defense to really kind of play towards the edge because he's gonna run toward the sideline. So they're gonna have to really play contain and try to set the edge, and what that does is allows more running lanes in the middle for Carlos Hyde where he really kind of eats. And what's really nice about Hyde, I think preseason, we really didn't talk about Hyde being this pass catcher, but he's been really consistent, as you mentioned, John, in the passing game in this offense. He's shown that he can get it done, and when, again, preseason, not a lot of people thought that he would be this great pass catcher in the offense, but he's shown to be pretty efficient in that regard. So that's nice. That gives him a nice floor, as well as now having this open up with Kaepernick at quarterback.
Yeah, so I agree as well. I'm really glad we brought him up. I love him too. He actually had a bell cow game last week where you saw, like you said, 6 targets, and that was 100% of the running back targets. And Drawn was kind of like annoying to start the season, and he's kind of seeded into the background, which makes Hyde way more appealing. We talked about him 2 weeks ago when it was just like, I mean, you're banking on a touchdown here, but he's grossly mispriced. But now he has that receiving floor too to make him just extra valuable. And if the 49ers do get into the red zone, like he's going to get some looks. Like he has, I think, 45% of the team's offensive touchdowns right now. Really, that's their whole offense. And then there's the narrative with Kaepernick coming in, who's perhaps more mobile than Gabbert, with a worse arm. Maybe they lean heavier on the run, or the run is more efficient.
Better arm, but he only has one speed.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing about Kaepernick is like all these talking heads or all these like people are like, oh, Kaeper's an idiot. He doesn't stand for the American, and like they're all calling him an idiot because of his political views. But like I don't care about all that. But like just like watching his tape or watching games from like last year, he's really stupid. He's like one of the dumbest. Just like he locks into a guy, sees the guy is like completely covered, and then throws it directly to that guy, and it's intercepted.
Yeah.
And then goes back to it. Yeah.
I think he's going to run a lot, though, in this game. I really do. I think he's going to be kind of forced to have to do that. I think not having as much prep, basically being behind Gabbert in the offense, I think he's going to rely on his tools, and his main tool is to run, and when he doesn't see anybody open. So I think that's going to be – he'll be a sneaky play. I don't have the cojones to play him in a GPP, but I think he does obviously help hide quite a bit in the offense. So I like that aspect anyway.
Yeah.
Also, real quick, I'm sorry, John. And I mentioned him earlier, GPP play at running back. So I mentioned him earlier when we were talking about the Bengals. I do like Gio. I think he's a really safe floor play because of his ability in the passing game. I think he's going to be relied upon a lot. So I think he could have a 6 or 7 catch game in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, I just wanted to say that I've seen some memes floating around that says the Bills should just play the national anthem on third downs and Kaepernick will just take a knee.
Oh, hey, listen, let me tell you something, though, about Colin Kaepernick. There's nothing more fucking American than his fucking afro. That thing is beautiful. That is a big, beautiful fucking shrub of a fucking afro.
I just want to see him like put his helmet on, like that.
I just want to see the old NFL films where he pulls it off and it makes that like popping sound, like.
Yeah. So Gio, Scott, I know you have a stat on what the Patriots are giving up to skill positions through receiving versus what they're giving up via rushing. And it's crazy lopsided for the Pats. Like they're not allowing rushing production, which means Gio is probably the guy. And then I think Jeremy Hill might be like legitimately hurt. He left the game early week 4. It came in and out with a shoulder issue. Then he didn't finish last week. And then now he's still on the injury report. And just to throw in there, TJ Calkin just told us that Carlos Hyde was only 5% owned on Fantasy Aces this week, so he may go in or two.
Thanks, TJ Calkins. Good man,
Scott,
TJ Calkins.
He is a good guy. Scott, you got that number, or do you want me to keep going on?
So that's true. The Patriots are giving up the 10th most receiving fantasy points to running backs, and then the 5th fewest rushing fantasy points to running backs. So that definitely does seem like a Gio game, and I think that weird Jeremy Hill injury is really going to benefit Gio. Just looking in that range, though, I think Jonathan Stewart's injury interesting. Even though he's coming back from an injury, this is really just like a beautiful matchup for him. And then Jamal Charles is right at that same price point. And really the most efficient running back of all time, ranks first all time in yards per carry. A Hall of Fame fantasy running back for sure. And then right below him is Terrence West, who they just fired their offensive coordinator for passing too much. And he had a monster game, over 100 rushing yards, I believe, on just like 10 carries. Then you have right tied with him is LeGarrette Blount, who Patriots are favored by 8. And every time the Patriots win by at least 7, Blount's average points per game jump by like at least 10. And then you have Ryan Matthews, who might be in the best matchup of all. You want to sort through this for me, Johnny, while I go take a leak?
Yeah. So Ryan, Matt, like the Skins are I guess you can call them the worst rushing defense in football. They're allowing tons of yardage, tons of touchdowns. They're just not good. And pretty much the reason why Mark Trestman got fired last week was because Terrence West was averaging something like 8 yards per carry, and he only got 11 attempts against them. So Ryan Matthews is like that is like my go-to in GPPs is to fire up Carlos Hyde and Ryan Matthews and then figure out what I'm doing from there. Rami, you like those two?
I do, yeah. And obviously, again, shout out to UF Collective. Pretty much averaging about 5% ownership for Matthews right now. So that's really, really nice for a GPP.
Oh, yeah. And two other guys that I really like that we didn't talk about. Mark Ingram, I think, is a really good play this week. And Kristen Michael against Atlanta. You guys on either of those two?
Yeah, Kristen Michael's a great play.
Yeah, and he's still his cost still hasn't really gone through the roof yet, and he's still getting the lion's share of the touches. So he's a very good play. He's another guy that I would alternate in there, especially if you're making stacks. If you're going to do like a really interesting contrarian stack would be Christine Michael, the Seattle Seahawks defense, and maybe Tyler Lockett. Because you can get you get that basically that control of the game, Christine Michael getting the touches, you get the defense, and then potentially Tyler Lockett, who's now apparently healthy and almost bare minimum, returning one for a touchdown, which is really a great double dip. So,
yeah, for sure. And I guess one guy I want to mention that.
Well, I'm not done with Christine Michael. So he's averaging about 16 carries per game and over 4 targets per game, and those are including the games where Thomas Rawls did play. And there's reports that like wind and the weather is going to be a major concern. If that happens, I really think they're going to lean heavy on Kristen Michael this week. I kind of like that whole offense, that whole Seattle offense bouncing back. I think Russell Wilson has had time to get healthy.
The whole offense, man. It's gonna be amazing, dude. Graham looks great now, so
yes,
it's gonna be a lot. Baldwin, I mean, it's gonna be the tits, man. It's gonna be a really good matchup.
Yeah, and I think we didn't talk about him, but Russell Wilson's a really, really nice.
Yeah, I do. I like him as well. He's my other. I'd actually like him as a cash play too. I think his cost is still pretty low.
Yeah, I think if the weather permits, like it's not going to be windy, it's just going to be rainy, then you can use Wilson in cash too.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and so the running back that I want to discuss, but I'm off of Lamar Miller. I think that offense is just not good. I see people mentioning using him in cash. I think that's just fucking insane.
He hasn't done anything to show that he's reliable for cash. So I mean, it's pretty dangerous, I think, for cash. Yeah,
Scott, where are you on Lamar?
I like him as a GPP play, but I agree with your take that he's not cash game viable.
Yep. Any other running backs you guys want to talk about?
That about does it for me, man.
Yeah,
you guys named everybody on my list.
Yeah, and Theo Riddick.
Yeah.
I don't know about the health. That bothers me.
He's out. He's not playing.
He's not playing?
Okay. Nope. And you can't play Justin Forsett on at least DraftKings, I think.
Oh, really?
So I don't know.
You don't make the law. You just enforce it.
By the way, before you go on, I wanted to say, man, I noticed because I'm watching you guys back and forth here. John's getting beers delivered right to him as his podcast. I'm just gonna say, dude, never get married because once you get married, that shit will stop, dude.
Oh, I know, man. I'm keeping it rolling.
That's a pro tip, bro. Once you put a ring on that shit, you're done. So
I'm gonna let her know you said that. She's gonna be really upset.
No, but she'll keep bringing you beers, bro. Don't worry about it, man. You're all good. Just don't get crazy. Don't get crazy, man. Don't get crazy.
But I just want to say,
look at Scott trying to keep it professional over here.
I mean, you're talking about girlfriends. You make me feel lonely. So Zach Zenner, I think, honestly, could be an interesting or Washington if he
It's
plays.
not the preseason, dude. Calm down.
Could be interesting GPP plays.
Oh, you're right. You're right, man.
If they get a bell cow roll, we haven't really seen that with or we saw it last week with one running back dominating everything. Where it was but now Theo Riddick's gone, so that there goes that receiving running back. So then it could be Zenner possibly as the runner and receiver as everything, and it could be shaping up like how well he performed in preseason last year. But that I do think that is kind of a bold, ballsy call.
Yeah.
I like it.
I don't know.
I think that is ballsy though, man. If it happens, we're fucking. That's it. We're shutting it down.
Yeah.
I mean, don't load up on it, but if you brought it up,
especially because Zach Zenner stinks in the regular season.
Yeah, he's not allowed to play. He's not allowed to touch the football.
No, he's not allowed to average more than 3 yards per carry in the regular season.
He's only allowed to make you money in the preseason.
There's a conspiracy against Davis Maddock. The NFL is just guys, Janis is so good, but we can't let that happen. He has to body catch everything and not see the field. Same with Zenner's. Odell Beckham Jr. is the only one allowed to be on steroids.
What? What are you talking about?
I don't even know what's happening right now.
Let's talk wide receivers.
Is this a Donald Trump conspiracy? What's up with this shit, man? By the way, when we were talking about Christine Michael, Donald Trump thought we were talking about a chick and wanted to fill him up. So, but anyway, go ahead, man.
Trump went right for the pussy. So going into wide receivers, we talked Antonio Brown a little bit already, so I don't think there's much more to say on him, other than he's priced up and he's kind of a tournament play. I think Kelvin is a guy that people are talking about a lot, and I'm not really all that interested in him this week. Where are you guys on Kelvin Benjamin this week?
I don't know, man. You know what? I'll be honest. If I do play Cam, I generally don't play anybody else. I don't stack them. It's it's naked Cam or nothing. You know what I mean? And that's generally what I prefer to have with Cam. Even if it's in a GPP, I just tend to have Cam and don't worry about who he's throwing to.
Yeah, and I guess for me, it's I'm going to play Olsen before I play Kelvin for cheaper.
Yeah, but I think now his price has gone up so much that. And he's going to be really, really chalky. I'm probably moving off of Olsen. It feels like a potential letdown, in terms of returning money on what his price is now.
I mean, I'm okay with Olsen. Kelvin, I'm just I feel like I'm just not going to end up with him. That might be a mistake, but I don't know. Scott, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to have Kelvin and some of my Drew Brees game stacks. And I think he's going to go low owned on DraftKings just because Olsen's probably the better play from a cash sense. There's the narrative, too, that New Orleans has shut down opposing teams' wide receiver ones. We saw that with Julio and Odell Beckham. But I don't really think Kelvin's the same type of wide receiver one where you necessarily have to game plan and shut him down. I think more so they're worried about Cam and his mobility. I like him more on FanDuel for sure, especially because he's so touchdown dependent. But I think he's a fine play. I do agree Olsen's the superior play from strictly a cash sense. But I'm not playing him in cash for sure. In this game though, I do want to say I really like Brandon Cooks. I wrote about this in my FanVice piece. Just the cornerbacks they're going up against. I talked about this earlier, actually. And I like Michael Thomas, too. And Carolina this season is giving up the fewest fantasy points per game to opposing slot receivers. And I think that might have something to do with how good their linebacking core is and how bad their outside corners are. So that makes me like Snead a lot less, especially since this week he said he's at about 95%. I think anytime wide receiver says he's not 100%, that's a red flag to me, especially when it's like a foot injury like that. But I do really like almost everyone in this game. And it has the highest over-under by a significant margin for a good reason. I think the highest besides this is Indy Houston at 48, and this is at 53.5. Anything else to add, John?
Not really. I'm okay with Snead more than Scott is. I don't think that the Panthers are especially imposing. They're going to be missing their slot corner again this week as well. They rank 29th in DVOA against the tight end. So I'm not sure that they're as good in the middle of the field as Scott is. I guess we're allowed to disagree sometimes.
No, you're not. So next wide receiver I have on my list, Marv. We kind of talked about a little bit with Stafford. Johnny, that's your boy. You want to go in right now?
I mean, Marv has been my boy all off season and whatnot, but ever since he's been banged up, he hasn't. He had 3 pretty solid games to start. Then he's been on the injury report off and on, and he hasn't done much since being on the injury report. So I kind of shy away from players I think might be hurt, and I think that might be possible for him. Though he is the cheapest he's been since week 3, so I think you can consider him. Though I'm not sure you need to go that route with Marv this week.
He's going to be a lower owned in GPPs, though. He's not going to be up near the chalk at all. So that's one positive anyway. But I kind of agree with John a little bit. I think that when he gets to somebody, and he's shown that too prior in his history when he was with the Bengals, when he get a little dinged up, he's kind of hard to rely on, even when he was the second option in that offense. So kind of tend to agree, but
Yeah, the thing I consider that too, but he practiced in full all week and wasn't on the injury report, so I do see this as a bounce back game for him. And another thing too is I always questioned Marvin's ascension to elite wide receiver 1 status, and my whole reasoning behind that was look at the cornerbacks he's beating. He's beating garbage cornerbacks, but that's what he's going to get this week with Trumaine Johnson out.
Yep, that's true. I mean, that's a positive. So
we've seen that with some wide receivers who have a somewhat limited skill set and dominate these.
Allen Robinson,
and that's the next guy I'm talking about, Johnny, who is in a great matchup, low owned on aces. Go ahead, Johnny. Talk about Allen Robinson.
No, I mean, I love Allen Robinson, but I'll give it to Scott. I'll give Scott the floor to say how Robinson has been against good versus bad cornerbacks in his career.
All right. Well, I'll have to pull up the stat, but last week we liked T.Y. Hilton a lot, and a big reason we liked T.Y. Hilton was because of this matchup up against this Bears secondary that has just been awful. Tracy Porter stinks, and T.Y. Hilton just ran all over him. So my stat for Allen Robinson was he averaged 0.68 fantasy points per target against PFF's top 20 graded cornerbacks, and he averaged 3.1 fantasy points per target against our bottom 25 graded cornerbacks, and that's in a sample size of, or for those at least, it was 32 targets and then 23 targets. Guess where Porter ranks in the bottom 25? So I really like Allen Robinson this week. I think he beats up on the Bears. I think he's a great GPP play, and his price is low. I'm not sure if I'd play him in cash though. Anything to add, either of you two?
No, I'm with you, man. I like A-Rob, and I think I talked about this earlier. I love a GPP stack of Bortles, A-Rob, and Hearns this week. I think it's setting up nicely for this game to kind of exceed the implied point total. So I like it, man. I like it. And also, one more guy too I want to bring up, and this is sort of along the lines of the some of the New England Nuggets guys. Gronk did not practice today. He has an illness, which could be just chlamydia, if we know Gronk. But chances are it could be the flu, and I think they're really happy with just playing with one tight end being Bennett. Now Bennett also, even though he went off last week, does have a little bit of an ankle issue. So I think if Gronk is out this game, I think they go more 3 wide receiver sets in this game, and I think that really kind of boosts Edelman, who kind of maybe had sort of a down game in terms of expectation last week because of the tight ends going off and most notably Bennett. So I think Edelman's actually kind of a nice play this week. I think he's a nice pivot because people will be sort of down on him after last week, thinking that he'd really have a huge game. And if Gronk is definitely out, I think Edelman kind of really stands to benefit the most because I think that's where the focus will shift in the offense.
I think Edelman's a great call, Rummy. We always like him in cash because he has that high floor due to the massive volume he sees. Also, Cincinnati's giving up the 6th most fantasy points per game to opposing slot receivers. So it does kind of look like a matchup we could exploit for our benefit.
Yeah.
And Belichick.
And after
Go ahead.
After he busted last week, people aren't going to be on him. So Edelman's one of my favorite tournament plays this week. As like he was kind of Evan Silva mentioned on his podcast this week with Ross Tucker. Edelman was like the only player on the Patriots last week that didn't go off. Like even LeGarrette Blount had a touchdown and like Edelman sucked. So
yeah,
it's one of those like big bounce back spots for him, and Brady's gonna, that's his boy.
He's gonna be incredibly low owned. I think he's gonna be really this is what's really nice about what happened with Bennett is because people will still be on Gronk. I think I mentioned this earlier in the week. I think even though Gronk potentially could be out, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it's an early game, so that's really good for us. But if he's out, I think people automatically will assume Bennett's going to eat in this game, and I think that's probably bad process. I think Edelman gets most of the targets. I think we'll probably see a little bit more too of Bennett because when they go 3 wide, Bennett blocks a lot more.
Yep.
So that's another thing that kind of takes away some of his targets. So yeah, absolutely. That's like one of my favorite plays, especially in GPPs.
Yep, for sure.
So I think Landry is another low-owned slot receiver who busted last week that I think not a lot of guys are going to be on. And then me and Johnny both like 2 other slot receivers for their matchups, and that's Doug Baldwin and then Tavon Austin, who feels really gross to recommend. But
no, it doesn't because he's what, 3,900 on DraftKings?
Yeah, finally.
I mean, he's so low, dude. So
he's got to be the top dollar per target value this week, or maybe Curly, but Johnny, you want to talk about why you don't like Curly and then why you do like Tavon Austin?
No, so I just want to say there, like on DraftKings, there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 4,000-ish wide receivers who were all like as of Monday were all in play. That's Tavon Austin, Cameron Meredith, Eddie Royal, Michael Thomas, and Jeremy Curley.
Yep.
And I think as of hearing that Kaepernick is going to be playing, I think I sort of crossed Curley off my list. Kaepernick throws the ball like 500 miles an hour, no matter whether it's a 4-yard route or it's a 40-yard route. I think that hurts Curley a lot. The one thing Gabbert could do is he could put touch on short passes, though he was not very good in the long passing game. And I think he really worked well. His skill set worked well with Curley. So I'm out on Curley until we see Kaepernick and him work together. So for me, I got these 4,000 range guys: Austin, Meredith, Royal, Thomas.
Yep.
If Royal doesn't play, then it's just Thomas, Meredith, and Austin. I think they're all really, really close. Though Austin against Quandre Diggs is like the matchup of the week. Diggs is like possibly the worst corner in football. So Tavon should be able to do some serious work. So he probably hedges out the group a little bit at the top for me, but it's tough to pick between those guys.
And I think Meredith is probably going to be easily the highest owner of that group. So
yeah, and if Royal sits, I don't know. I mean, where do we end up, Scott? Where do you end up on those guys? That group.
Yeah, I hate to say it just because of how inconsistent he's been and how bad of a football player I think he is, but Tavon Austin still ranks 12th among wide receivers and targets, and he has the dream matchup that really like I'd want to target if any slot receiver was up against, and he's so low priced. I like Cameron Meredith. In the beginning of the week, I kind of thought he was like kind of trappy just because like I want to hold out hope for Alshon, who saw Vontae Davis and Darius Slay in shadow coverage each of the last 2 weeks. There's a narrative going around that Vontae Davis hasn't been shadowing, but at least according to PFF, that's not true. So I'm not as high on Cam Meredith as a lot of other people, but if Eddie Royal doesn't play, really do have to like him. I heard a shout of jubilance from Rumford. Were you going to add something?
Jubilance? No. I just farted. I just farted, so I felt really good. So I was very jubilant, man.
Well, I mean, like that's fitting considering we were talking about Tavon Austin.
Yeah. No, I mean, everybody that you guys mentioned. I mean, it just again, what happens is that sometimes DK, especially DraftKings, overlooks a lot of guys who are really target hogs, and they're just mispriced every week. And those just happen to be guys that, because we talked about being able to play Le'Veon Bell and some of those other guys at the top of your lineups, you can certainly fit all these guys in there and really construct a really high floor lineup, especially in cash. So I love these guys, man.
And again, John Brown has only 4,500, has seen 20 targets over the past 2 weeks. You could read my article or Johnny's for why we're both on Tavon Austin. Talked about a few other wide receivers I think are cash game viable. Baldwin. Are you scared of the wind, Johnny, for Doug Baldwin?
Are you scared of the wind, Johnny?
I'm not as much. I'm not as much scared of the wind as I am in like right now.
The rain, man.
Rummy's off-season boy. Jimmy Graham is like,
oh yeah,
he's leading that shit, man.
I love it.
Like, that's their boy.
I had him all like in all of my best ball leagues, man. A ton of them. So he's finally picking up. I love it.
We got to give props to Rummy on that because I remember giving him shit for that call on our podcast, but it definitely looks like it worked out for him.
We both did, man, and we both look like idiots.
I mean, there's a chance that he could have never been he would have been a shadow of himself. But I mean, in best ball, it's like you just want to line up those guys that potentially have that ability to come back and blow up, and he certainly had all of the athleticism and the investment from the front office to be able to be one of the guys in the offense. And that's really all you banked on. And he was super cheap. And I got him in 12th round to 13th round. He was super cheap.
Yeah, so I guess I'll talk about both guys for a second. It's a dream matchup for Jimmy Graham. Last week, the Falcons faced Denver, who don't really have a viable tight end at the moment. So if we just scrap that game, then in the first 4 weeks of the season, the Falcons gave up at least 23 PPR points to opposing tight ends, which is crazy, and really wasn't anyone too talented. I think it was the Bucks and I don't know, a few other teams that weren't too exciting. But my thing with Doug Baldwin versus Jimmy is that Jimmy has got a ton of his fantasy production on deep balls, and he ranks top 5 among the tight ends in average depth of target, while Doug Baldwin ranks bottom 10 or bottom 15 in average depth of target. So I think if there is wind, he's the one who could benefit more. And then just Falcons are giving up the 5th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers out of the slot. Then Evan Silva had a great stat about Doug Baldwin's last 7 home games. So over his last 7 home games, he's scored 9 touchdowns, is averaging about 8 receptions and 100 yards in those games. So I think he's a solid option. I know there are a few other guys. Anyone else cash game viable for you, Johnny, that we haven't brought up?
For wide receivers? No, yeah. I can't play Baldwin in cash with Graham emerging. Sorry. He was 6% owned on Aces. He's more of a GPP play. I think we talked about Landry too. Yeah. Any interest in Landry as a GPP play? Yeah, the concern with Landry is I think he's maybe viable for cash, but my concern is that the Dolphins haven't cleared 50 plays on offense over the last 2 weeks.
Fucking
so
horrible,
that's
man.
my concern.
They're a horrible
They're
football
bad.
team. They're a bad team.
Yeah. And then I think Macklin in the slot against DJ Hayden makes some sense. But,
yeah, I like that. A lot of people are off of Macklin this week, but he's someone who's also his last season did better when Jamal Charles was on the field. And the volume is still there, so I could see him rebounding. You want to just move on to tight ends? We just talked about Jimmy Graham. Rummy, did you want to add anything on Jimmy?
No, man, I love him, man. Again, it's the price point. A lot of these guys, and it happens a lot too with Seattle, especially coming off a bye. They're all really priced really moderately, so you can kind of make a lot of different combinations with these guys without really busting your bankroll. So I love them. I like Graham. I like Baldwin, but I like your reasoning behind Baldwin over Graham if the weather is unfavorable, because I think he certainly would be catching more passes. He'd be more the outlet for Russell Wilson than Graham for sure.
So I think the only person
Atlanta's just like bad against the tight end.
Yeah.
So. And they gave up the second most fantasy points to opposing tight ends last season as well. So it's like a common trend with them. It's not just like
we're gonna own a lot of these guys, so it doesn't really fucking matter. So
and then I think the only tight end in a better spot is Delaney Walker up against the Browns, who just gave up this monstrous game to the Patriots. Martellus Bennett had over 30 fantasy points. Rob Gronkowski had 5 receptions for 109 yards. But they also gave up a ton of fantasy points to. They gave up 28 fantasy points to Jordan Reed, 19 to Dennis Pitta, and then their other 2 matchups were Zach Ertz and Jordan Cameron leaving early with injuries. So I do think this is an attractive matchup. I've heard a lot of fantasy analysts give the take that don't overreact to what the Patriots did. That's just the Patriots. But I do think they are kind of a defense to exploit via the tight end anyway. And I do just love Delaney, who went off last week and looks back from his injury.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And listen too. Remember too, the Browns, like, they were wore out by both Bennett and Gronk. And Gronk was playing a lot of the slot. You know that, Scott, because of the PFF stuff. So no matter where you use Delaney, where he lines up, if he lines up in line or in the slot, he's going to eat. So it doesn't really matter if how they use him in that offense. So they're vulnerable to both. They were vulnerable both to inline and to slot use for the tight end, basically.
That's a great point, especially because Delaney Walker over the past 2 seasons has lined up in the slot more than any other tight end.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, Delaney's in a sweet spot, man. It's tough when you've got Delaney, you've got Travis Kelce, and you've got Jimmy Graham all in that 4,900, 5,000, 5,500 range on DraftKings. To pick between the 3 of them, I think it's pretty tough to pick one of those 3.
I agree, and I like Kelce a lot too.
I do too.
And then you got the big boy up at the top, who might be the best play. I think I'm leaning Delaney, but Johnny, I know you're leaning Olsen. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So, like, Greg Olsen has been insane this year. He's averaging 21 DraftKings points per game. He gets to go against the New Orleans Saints, who are ranked 29th against the tight end per DVOA. They're just getting beat up by the pass. And if you want like the best, most reasonably priced exposure to the Panthers offense on DraftKings, it's Greg Olsen. And so it's hard to ignore him.
I mean, yeah, we're speechless. Dead
air.
Johnny will edit that out later. I love Olsen. I think it might be somewhat noteworthy that like a huge chunk of his fantasy points came from Derek Anderson and not Cam Newton, especially when your narrative all offseason was Cam Newton and Kelvin Benjamin are boys. So maybe the 2 old white guys are boys. I don't know. But I do think Delaney is the play here, just given matchup. it would have been more of a coin flip for Jimmy if the win wasn't a concern. I do like Travis Kelce a lot as well. Yeah. So we're only talking high-priced guys. Is there anyone low price that you really like?
Yeah, it's gonna get gross real quick. But where's everybody at on Kobe? There he is.
I mean, his price is so like attractive, and this is a massive shootout. But he's so like he's one of those guys that's like he's like the dude like you're riding with, like you're going to the party. Don't forget to tap for the keg, dude. He's the guy you're like, oh, don't worry about it. I'll bring the tap. Don't worry about it. Everybody gets to the party. You got the kegs rolling out. Fleener shows up. He doesn't have the tap, and you're fucked. It's like, dude, that's Fleener. Like, that he has the athleticism, but like he just doesn't have that like that kind of instinct to like just tear it off at 1 week and really put in a huge game. I mean, he has had some decent games, but I mean, I'd play him only in GPPs, obviously, but I'm not going to have a ton of exposure. I really feel great about a lot of the other names we mentioned already, like Kelce, Walker, and Graham. I think those are all great. I think Olsen obviously is a chalk, but yeah, I mean, it's just hard to get down to like Fleener. I mean, he allows you to do a lot of shit though with your lineup. I mean, if you play him, you can have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, and so like I was actually backwards. So it's Carolina the 29th against the tight end, New Orleans in the middle. They're like 16th, but I think you can play Fleener in cash and like it's.
Oh no!
I think you can do it.
Yeah, you probably could. I mean, because he's priced so low. I mean, what does he have to return for you, really? I mean, like 10 points, really? I mean, essentially.
He doesn't have to do much, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's shit, like 10 or 11 points. I mean, that's not much. So, and he'll do that, but it's like, that ceiling also isn't like super high either. So.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say that was the greatest player comp I've ever heard in my entire life. That was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you're getting the tight end on the team that has the highest implied point total in the highest over-under game by a pretty wide margin. And he's like it or not, he's sixth among tight ends in targets per game. So I do like him. And I agree it doesn't feel good, but I do think he is a solid play this week.
It doesn't feel good. That's it.
Yeah,
it feels like sitting next to Donald Trump on a plane. It's very
well, that makes sense because it makes sense because Fleener is often grabbing his pussy. I mean, the dude is. Anyway, so another tight end who I think is makes a little bit of sense this week because Steve Smith is out is Dennis Pitta. Though he's priced up,
yeah,
I think he's going to replace a lot of the targets that Smith was getting in between the 20s. Feel about Pitta.
He's all right. I mean, he's a decent play. I mean, I just hate that offense so much, man. I mean, I fucking hate the Ravens.
I'm not stoked about it.
Yeah, I don't feel like super comfortable. But I mean, I would like in a GPP, yeah, for sure. Like definitely not in cash because I just don't trust that offense right now.
So yeah, Pitta's third among tight ends in targets per game. His issue is he's really not getting any red zone usage. They kind of pull him out for Crockett Gilmore. He has 0 touchdowns this season. And yeah, Rummy's right. This offense is kind of weird with Steve Smith probably out. Not sure what that means. Is Kamar Aiken the guy? Is Dennis Pitta the guy? And they use more 2 tight end sets. I really don't know. And Pitta's not someone I'm bending over backwards to play. But I could see him going off. So.
I think another tight end to consider is Zach Miller. He's been fine since Hoyer's been at the helm, and I think you can use him again this week. He's pretty much met value for 3 weeks in a row with Hoyer. So
here's your GPP. Here's your GPP stack. Ready? Here's your GPP stack. Kirk Cousins and Vernon Davis. I mean, I know it's out there, but I mean, nobody's gonna fucking own him. Nobody. Like he'll be like less than like 0.4% owned.
Niles Paul.
Maybe now it's Paul. I mean, I would say Davis is probably going to see the majority of the snaps, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, that was my
thoughts
originally too, Rummy. But I don't know. I'm hearing a lot.
I kind of have to deal with
Niles
BD
Paul.
on a Sunday.
I would prefer Paul, honestly, because you know why? Because in that pros versus Joes thing, I actually fucking drafted him in like the 30th round, whatever the fuck that was in that thing. But because I knew Jordan Reed would get hurt, so I grabbed Niles Paul. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think they're saying that Davis is probably gonna get the. I was just looking at CSN, Washington D.C. whatever, whoever covers the Redskins, and they said that Davis will probably see a majority of the snaps. But I do like Paul. I think that's kind of a sneaky play. But I mean, again, not in a really cheap GPP. I might throw that out there because that's totally going to differentiate you from the pack. Because everybody's gonna pivot on that. They're not gonna bother. They're gonna say like automatically, well, Jordan Reed's not there, so blah 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 blah. But if you do, I mean, if it hits, even if you get like 6 catches, and whatever, and maybe scored a touchdown, you'd be solid, man.
So I'm actually kind of glad that we talked about this because this is something I was contemplating in the beginning. I thought Vernon Davis was going to be the guy in the beginning. Then a lot of people talked about Niles Paul. And then I just started thinking, I'm like, does it even really matter? Last season when Reed went down, Derek Carrier didn't do anything. But then I looked back even further, but Niles Paul went out the season before that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's just like a lot of uncertainty, but I could see throwing in
it would be so good for the Living the Stream brand too, because they love Niles Paul.
That'd be great for them, yeah.
That would be dope. So
but
for sure.
I think that plays actually even more into defenses. Now that we're not going to have Reed, I really like Philly's defense against Kirk Cousins.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he doesn't have that outlet underneath.
What do you guys think about them? Even though they're on the road, I think Cousins is going to shit the bed this week. So I like the Eagles. I think they're really good.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Scott, Rummy, thoughts?
No, I agree with you. I think that's a really good play.
So
Good.
I think the Eagles' defense is legit, and outside of Fletcher Cox, I did not see this coming, especially after the Eagles dumped a bunch of defensive players, paid a lot of money from the Chip Kelly regime. I agree that those players were all bad, but I just had no idea that this could be a thing. And then I looked at an old PFF article from earlier this season. PFF on ESPN Insider ranked all NFL teams and gave the Eagles a top 5 ranking, primarily because of their defense. They actually have a really good defense, and Peterson's doing a great job of kind of managing it. I could see them getting to Cousins this week, and I think that's a pretty good play.
Yeah, so I like them a lot for cash games, GPPs, everything. They're one of my top. They're probably one of my top 5 defenses. Though I know the chalk is going to be Buffalo, Houston, Cleveland, and Tennessee.
Steelers.
Where are you guys at on those others? And the Steelers.
I actually like the Patriots in Seattle this week, man.
Ooh,
I do, man.
I feel like Seattle's kind of ballsy, but
I don't think so. I think at home, especially if we're like as you guys were pointing out, the conditions aren't great. I mean, there's not going to be a ton of points. I mean, if that's the case, so at home, I think that's a really good safe play for me. I think and then you also add in we were talking about with Lockett back, there's potential for Lockett to score for you. So if you stack him with the defense, it's a nice play. So yeah, I mean, I actually do like Seattle a little bit. Patriots are a decent play too at home. I think that with the limited weapons for Dalton, there's a chance for him to kind of make some mistakes in this game. So, and they'll definitely get after him for sure.
What about this? What about Colts 2,200? They're away, but they are playing Brock Osweiler, who stinks.
Nah, wave.
You could fit in like the dopest team.
I got a better one for you.
They need one pick and
the Bears.
Oh, the Bears at home.
Well, the Bears because
the Bears.
That's what it is. No,
because
Johnny's right.
Bortles will potentially throw 3 picks easily.
Yeah. I think that's the play. I think it's cheap defense this week.
Yeah.
Your cheap defense is the Bears. Yeah.
Nice.
That's a great call. You're right on this.
And so, So if you're not, if you're going down in defense, like everyone in agreement, Bears against Bortles.
I think that because you have to account for the fact that he's going to potentially at least throw 2 picks in this game. Even if he throws for 3 touchdowns, he's going to throw at least an interception, potentially 2. That's just
he's going to get sacked.
Yes, totally.
Yeah,
or maybe strip sack too.
I think Bears are like just as good of a bet for a defensive touchdown as like any other defense on the slate, and I think that kind of leads into like why people want to use the Texans against Andrew Luck. I don't know that the Texans are that much better of a play against Luck
I don't think so
the
either.
Bears are against Bortles.
Yeah, I agree.
Scott?
Yep, agreed. What do you want to do? Do you want to?
But I think they're all in play.
Yeah. Dead air.
Defense, do you guys have any other defenses you're considering?
Rami, anything?
No, that's it, man. Those are mine. This week I had Patriots, I had Seattle. Those are my 2 that I like the most. So, which probably differs from what you guys put out there. So that's cool.
Yeah, I like going all the way up to the Steelers and then all the way down to the Bears. It was a good call by Johnny. Otherwise, I don't like talking about defenses because they're stupid.
It's so fucking it's so random, though, really, truthfully.
No, it's true. Home favorites.
So I know.
Sacks, yeah. Johnny.
Yep. So I know someone's going to ask us in chat, and he does every week. Thoughts on kickers?
I don't play fucking FanDuel, so whatever. You guys.
Tennessee's kicker minimum priced as my value. With kickers, you just want to go for whoever is favorited by the most points. So after that.
Yep. I also I like Dan Bailey.
Yeah.
I like Dan Bailey because Packers' run defense is pretty good, so I think they might stop them in the red zone. I think they make some sense.
In order, ready? Patriots kicker, Buffalo kicker, Pittsburgh kicker, and then Tennessee kicker.
Let's throw Oakland and KC kickers in there. You can just wherever you want to put them.
Dude, we lost all of our fans and followers. They all hate us. We just talked 5 minutes about kickers.
We had to do it, dude. We had to do it.
We usually don't do this live, though. Usually you say farewell, and then we do it as a postscript, only to our live viewers.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine. But we've had some questions about weather. What are you guys doing? What are you thinking about with the weather in the KC Oakland game with wind concerns?
I'm not really worried about it too much. I mean, what are they like predicting in terms of how bad the winds will be?
Looks like 20 plus up to 40-mile-an-hour gusts, I think, right, Scott, for KC?
Yeah, so that's a lot of the West Coast games. We just talked about this with Seattle as well. I don't overreact too much to wind, especially like severe colds like we saw last year in the playoffs. That is something I'll be a little more hesitant about. Wind, like when it's in the 15 to 25 mile per hour range, I don't think that's too crazy because that's what it used to be at the old Giant Stadium. I don't think it really severely impacted pass games too much. And I feel like it'll affect ownership maybe more than play most times. If it's in 40 mile per hour range, like people are talking about, then obviously the deep threats kind of get hurt a little bit. And the shorter range guys, I think, get more of a plus. Maybe the run game gets a bit of a perk. Same thing in snowy, severe, rainy conditions. But it's definitely not as big of a deal to me in football, I think, as it is in baseball. But I haven't done a real study. Yeah.
Plus, it's 2 days out too, so I mean a lot could change, but between now and then. So.
Yeah, and I think it's a bigger deal for Derek Carr than it is for Alex Smith.
Yeah, because Alex Smith throws 5-yard fucking passes.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's hard for the wind to affect 4-yard outs.
Exactly.
Or like glorified handoffs to Jamar Charles that go for 85 yards.
Yes, exactly.
That sees air for like a millisecond.
Yeah.
All right. Did you guys want to?
So, any other plays or anything you guys want to talk about?
No, about covers it for me, man.
All right. I did a quick Monday Thursday lineup. Tell me what you'd change about this, or what the point of hesitancy would be. Carson Palmer, Le'Veon Bell, LaShawn McCoy, Jordan Howard in the flex, John Brown, Cameron Meredith, Doug Baldwin, Delaney Walker, Bears. Anyone you don't like there? You want to upgrade?
I wouldn't play Baldwin in cash.
No?
That's
all right.
just me.
So then we'd have 6,600. There's Jeremy Maclin, Randall Cobb, Terrell Pryor.
Dude, this is too difficult.
All right. All right.
Okay.
We just talked kickers. Yeah, our brains are fried.
Yeah, man. Fuck
But
this.
I think that's a pretty decent lineup.
Yeah, it's good, man.
Yeah,
it's good. It's a good lineup, Scott.
All right. Well,
good job, buddy. Good job.
I gotta go write an article, and then I got to go to the doctor's because I'm sick, and I'm drinking water. And this
Chlamydia?
is like the first time I've ever done
Chlamydia
it.
again?
Yeah, it's recurring.
the
I don't
Gronk.
know what's going on.
Keeps coming back, man. Jesus.
Never
All right.
podcasting sober again. Thanks for tuning in. Love you guys.
All right, hey, I gotta do.
So
no shout outs, no nothing, man. What's up, man?
I was
That's what Johnny
about
does.
to. I was about to. Yeah.
Okay, let Johnny do it.
So if you want to support the pod and you want to sign up for RotoTracker, find rototracker.com/DFS Power Hour. If you want to find Rummy, you can find him on Twitter at RumForJohnny. He's definitely a recommended follow. He's a good friend of the pod. He's a sharp guy. He will occasionally ask questions or answer questions.
No, I won't.
He's a sharp guy. Yeah, you're a sharp guy. And if you've got Patriots questions, that's where to send them.
Woohoo.
If you want to find me or Scott, I am on Twitter as a sellout at John Proctor DFS, and Scott as well as sold out. He's on Twitter at Scott Barrett DFB, and make sure you follow the pod at PowerHour_DFS. Rummy, you got any last minute thoughts?
Yeah, man. Check out Draft Day Consultants. That is Denny Carter's website, and Sal Stefanelli, and I am part of it. You can hire any of the guns for your. Oh, nice flush, Scott. Thank you, buddy. You can hire us to help you with your fantasy lineups and with one-on-one Draft Day consulting. And also, guys, in a couple of days, I believe on the 19th, I'll be on the Fantasy Football Comedy Hour doing whatever the fuck they want me to do. I have no idea. I'm going to be doing some weird skits and shit. So definitely check that out because it's going to be silly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott, for taking a shit during the podcast, buddy.
Yeah. So make sure you check out everything Rummy's putting down. Honestly, Draft Day Consultants is good stuff, and the Comedy Hour is really funny as well. So thanks for joining in, everybody. Hope you have a good profitable week this week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, this was
Thanks
the worst.
For tuning in.
This was the worst one ever, man. I brought it way fucking down. Sorry, guys. Next time I'll try harder. Maybe not, but anyway, that was fun. I drank a lot of tequila. Don't blame me. Plus Scott has chlamydia, so whatever.
I told you not to tell anyone.
Yeah, I love your shirt, by the way. Depeche Mode is still relevant, dude.
Oh, Johnny, Rummy's bullying me.
Am I? No, you're my buddy, Scott. You're my buddy. I love, by the way, the fan in the background over John's head looks like a propeller on his head. It's really cool.
It is. It's propelling me for this podcast.
Looks like he's wearing a beanie.
Dude, no one is still listening to this, but you gotta close.
Yeah, I'm gonna take us off air at this point.
No. Rummy's gotta.